And that silence enraged one woman in the room. Yaa Asantewaa had been listening, and what she heard, men considering surrender, men offering up the sacred heart of a nation out of fear, broke something open inside her. She rose to her feet and she spoke.
Now I have seen that some of you fear to go forward to fight for our king. If it were in the brave days of Osetutu, Okomfo Anokie, Wanopoko where chiefs would not sit down to see their king taken away without firing a shot. No European could have dared to speak to the chiefs of Asante in the way the governor spoke to you this morning. Is it true that the bravery of Asante is no more? I cannot believe it. It cannot be. I must say this. If you, the men of Asante, will not go forward, then we will. We, the women, will. I shall call upon my fellow women. We will fight the white men. We will fight until the last of us falls in the battlefields.
That speech ignited a nation. Yaa Asantewaa was chosen by a number of regional Asante kings to be the war leader of the Asante fighting force, the first and only time in Asante history that a woman was given that role. A 60-year-old grandmother, a farmer, a queen, now a commander-in-chief.
What followed became known as the War of the Golden Stool, or by many Ghanaians today, simply the Yaa Asantewaa War. The Ashanti-British War of the Golden Stool was led by Queen Mother Nana, Yaa Asantewaa, with an army of 5,000. Beginning in March 1900, the rebellion laid siege to the British fort at Kumasi, where the colonial forces had sought refuge. Think about that. An Ashanti fighting force besieging a fortified British garrison. For months, Yaa Asantewaa's forces held the British pinned down. Supply lines cut, reinforcements blocked. The empire that had humiliated the Ashanti for decades was now trapped, exhausted, and, for the first time, genuinely afraid.
The conflict resulted in the death of approximately 1,000 British and allied African soldiers and 2,000 Ashanti, totals higher than the deaths from all previous wars between the Ashanti and the British combined. This was not a minor skirmish. This was a full-scale war of liberation, and Yaa Asantewaa was at the center of it, strategizing, rallying, fighting, and refusing to yield. On July 7, 1900, a Guernsey newspaper reported, "The colonial office has received disquieting news that the Queen Ashantua, ruler of Ofisa, has taken supreme command of the insurgent forces." Even the British press, which rarely gave African leaders any recognition, was forced to acknowledge her by name. But the British Empire, with its vast resources and near limitless manpower, began to respond. After several months, the Gold Coast governor sent a force of 1,400 soldiers to quell the rebellion. Then more reinforcements arrived. The forest that had protected Yaa Asantewaa's forces slowly became a trap. Supplies ran low. Disease took its toll. Warriors fell. She fought on, retreated, regrouped, fought again. For months she refused to surrender, but the numbers were impossible. Her spirit was not to be broken. She fought and retreated again and again with her ever-diminishing band of supporters, until, more than a year later, Queen Yaa Asantewaa and 15 of her closest advisors were captured and sent into exile to the Seychelles, just as her king and her grandson had been before her. She was in her 60s. She had led an army. She had besieged a British fort. She had shaken an empire. And now she was being shipped to a tiny island chain in the Indian Ocean. Thousands of miles, from the forests and golden stools of home. On January 1st, 1902, the British were finally able to accomplish what the Asante army had denied them for almost a century. The Asante Empire was made a protectorate of the British Crown. The empire had fallen, but it had not surrendered without a fight, and the Golden Stool, the soul of the Ashanti people, was never found. The elders had hidden it. It survived. During her years in exile in the Seychelles, Yaa Asantewaa was baptized and took the Christian name Elizabeth. Though far from home, she remained a powerful symbol of Ashanti resistance. She lived out her remaining years on that distant island, a queen without a kingdom, but never without her dignity. Yaa Asantewaa died in exile on October 17, 1921. She was approximately 81 years old. The story does not end there, because the greatest victories are sometimes the ones that come after death. 3 years after her death, on December 27, 1924, Prempeh I and the remaining members of the exiled Asante court were allowed to return home. Prempeh I made sure that the remains of Yaa Asantewaa and the other exiled Asantes were returned for a proper royal burial. She came home. And on March 6, 1957, Yaa Asantewaa's dream for an Asante free of foreign rule was realized when the Asante territory gained independence as part of Ghana, the first African nation in sub-Saharan Africa to achieve freedom from European colonialism. She had fought for it, she had bled for it, she had died in exile for it, and it came. Perhaps not in her lifetime, but it came. To honor the importance of female leadership in Ghanaian society, the Yaa Asantewaa Girls' Secondary School was established at Kumasi in 1959, now one of the leading schools in all of Ghana. In 2000, week-long centenary celebrations were held across Ghana to acknowledge her accomplishments. A museum was dedicated to her at Kwaso in the Ejisu Juaben district on August 3, 2000. Her sandals, her battle dress, her story, taught to children across Ghana, sung in songs, whispered with reverence in the language of the Ashanti people. So why does Yaa Asantewaa matter? Over 100 years later. Because she stood up when everyone else sat down. Because she was a woman in a world that expected women to be silent. And she gave one of the most powerful speeches in the history of African resistance. Because she picked up a rifle at 60 years old and led an army against the most powerful military force on earth. Not out of recklessness, but out of love. Love for her king, love for her people, love for the sacred soul of her nation. Because she showed that resistance doesn't require permission, that dignity cannot be taken, only surrendered. And she never surrendered it. There is a saying among the Ashanti, Oba na owo obarima. It is a woman who gave birth to a man. In Ashanti culture, women are not the background, they are the foundation. Yaa Asantewaa understood that. She lived it. And when the foundation was under attack, she stood on it and refused to move. The British colonial governor called her a rebel. History calls her a hero. The Ashanti people call her something simpler and more profound, Mother. Yaa Asantewaa was born in a small village. She farmed crops. She raised a family. She lived a quiet life in a kingdom full of noise. And then history called on her, and she answered, louder than anyone expected. The Golden Stool was never taken. The soul of the Ashanti people was never conquered. And somewhere in that fact, in that small stubborn victory carved out of a larger defeat,
lives the spirit of one woman who stood up and said, "We will fight till the last of us falls." She meant it. If this story moved you, share it. Too many people have never heard the name Yaa Asantewaa, and that needs to change. Drop a comment below. What part of her story surprised you most? Subscribe for more deep dives into the history that shaped our world. And until next time, know your history.